Miss Lee.
Yes,
This is Mr. Kamau. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, perfect. We're on live on policereviews.com. And the reason we're speaking today is I called you to set up an expert witness review of your case, and I want to talk with you about the evidence and the conclusions that we reached regarding your son. You contacted us about a year ago, and at that time you reported that your son had been falsely arrested and charged in a drug sting investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to just change pages here in just a moment. Just let me switch over. And what I want to get to is an actual video of my interview with your son that you provided to us. He talks about his case, and I'm going to let him speak first. You won't be able to hear it, but when the video is concluded, then I'll come back to you again, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, just a moment.
Hello, my name is Daryl Lee, Jr. I was a student and former football player at Navarro College, where I was arrested on possession of marijuana charged under 2 ounces, which is really way more than 2 ounces. But I was sitting down with 2 other teammates as we got an anonymous knock on the door, and it happened to be the police. And as I opened the door, or as I first asked who was it, I got no response. But as I opened the door, the 3 police officers just came in with no warrant or anything, and they just asked, "Where's the drugs and money?" And as we were sitting, they just kept asking this question, and they searched the house, and then they searched our cars, and then as they searched the cars, they found some pills which were prescribed to me, and I was charged with those also. And the very next day, as I got to jail, the very next day I was removed from school and I lost a scholarship, and both of the cases were dismissed. And as the year of 2012 continued, was probably one of the worst years of my life. That's because it's been hard for me to get back on the football field after something, so small. And it's been hard for me to stay focused in school. And it's just been really hard this whole year, but I'm still trying, and hopefully 2013 year will be much more positive.
Okay, Miss Lee, your son's video just finished. I'm sure you've watched it. Let me just switch to another section of evidence. Just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, what I just pulled up on the screen now is your case file on Google Drive. And essentially, you sent us a number of files, including the most recent and relevant one, which is the dismissal. I want to read your email from August 14th, 2012. Hello, wanted you all to be the first to know the case against our son, the football player, hopefully has been dismissed with diligence and listening to the voice of Kamau. We did it. Well, first of all, let me thank you for that. Thank you. It was important that we were able to help you and give you guidance, but really we did our job. You did the real work, and you fought for your son. And I want to go over the evidence because I've given you a preliminary opinion about my view of the case and the conduct of the police officers, but I want to start by opening just a couple of documents first and going over what you sent me. Okay, I have the motion to dismiss from the Navarro County, Texas Attorney General's office, and essentially they say that they're dismissing the charges because another defendant accepted responsibility. And that's basically what it says. The co-defendant took responsibility. You and I both have a different view of that, but that really takes me to the heart of my thoughts about your case. This is a case that never should have been brought. They ended up with a dismissal because you decided to fight it. You knew your son was innocent. There was overwhelming evidence that he never should have been arrested in the first place. And actually, let me go over some of that evidence and talk about the case, and then I'll give you an opportunity to comment. Essentially, this case resulted from an undercover drug sting involving the Navarro County Sheriff's Office and the Corsicana Police Department. And I'm going to tell you this just without knowing everything about that agency. Small town police departments across the country are frequently caught in situations like this where they lack the training. I have another case which is similar to this where people were doing things undercover that you're not allowed to do. Actually, I have 2 cases, and in the third case, the officer took a minor child that was in a car seat out with him on an undercover sting. So I know that these officers frequently make mistakes. They've been brought to our attention before, and I frankly think that's what happened in your case. You had a small, poorly trained, inexperienced drug unit attempting to do some sort of a major drug sting. You also pointed out to me that the sheriff was up for re-election, and that may have impacted his decision to pursue this case because it would generate news. Your son and other student athletes being caught up in a drug sales. So the case starts off with questionable circumstances and motives. Let me just change windows just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I just enlarged the screen right now so that I can show some of these documents and go through them. In addition to the motion to dismiss, you also had letters that you wrote explaining the situation and requesting that the NCAA allow your son an extra year of eligibility. You know, I never got an answer on that question. Did they give him an extra year, or did they turn him down?
No, what they called me and told me was that whatever coach has recruited him to their school to play, that coach will in turn, through their compliance department, request a 1 year of eligibility from them. Not us as an individual, but the actual coach that he's playing for at that time.
Okay, all right. And I'm looking at the campus newspaper, how they describe your son. Former student loses, actually that's not your son, but this is another case involving the same police department where a student accused the police of excessive force, correct?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to try to reach that person because I think his commentary would be useful to my report. Let me just go to something else you provided. That's another one. Okay, you also sent in approximately 30 emails containing additional evidence, and I'm going to pull some of that evidence up on the screen. Your son actually has a recruiting video online showing his talents, and it's your view that this arrest and being charged has impacted his ability to go forward as an athlete?
Of course. In these types of situations, there's also an email that I sent you where a professional recruiting coach has stated that athletes are commonly investigated by coaches online. And as soon as you Google his name, if anything comes up, that may steer them in another direction.
Okay. And so this issue with your son having a public record with an arrest on it, you believe could harm him if anyone were able to learn that?
Sure.
Okay. Have you ever had any explanation given to you by the police or the prosecutors as to why they went forward with this case?
No. What we have done was stayed in the court for hours and hours watching, numerous small amounts of charges. They have went ahead and accepted those charges without fighting them. As soon as our case came up, we could see that's all they want to do is just charge. You take it, whether you did it or not, just take it. And we sat there and refused to take the charge.
Okay, and let's talk about the charges because that goes directly to my opinions about the case. Essentially, what your son reported to me in a series of interviews and my staff, and we also interviewed his roommate, is that the police arrived at his home or his apartment unannounced, demanded entry, walked in without actually being invited in, started accusing them of dealing drugs and asked where the drugs were. The young man complied with pretty much everything they were told to do, but the police nevertheless did a detailed search and then went downstairs without a warrant, opened their vehicles, and then searched the vehicles as well. Is that the first part correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then at some point, they located prescription medication belonging to your son, and they also located a small amount of marijuana that belonged to one of the other roommates. And ultimately, they kind of threw everybody into one bag and attempted to offer you guys a deal that if he would plead guilty to having an excessive amount of his prescription medication in his possession, which was a felony, if he would plead guilty to the marijuana charge, they would drop the more serious charge?
Correct.
Okay, there's so many problems with this, I don't really know where to start. First of all, they had no warrant to go down and search his car. That is bizarre. And the fact that they didn't get a warrant, I don't know what quality of investigative work that they do, but I believe one would have been required if I were an officer under the same circumstances. Number two, it doesn't sound like they had a warrant when they came to the apartment. None was shown and none was produced later. So I assume they just, kind of barged their way in there as well. We requested the police department's records and they refused to provide them. I believe they're hiding something. And I told you before that if we couldn't get it through the Texas Freedom of Information Act, then the next best step is to pursue it through federal litigation. And you've since told me that that's what you want to do, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we're going to help you because they will have to produce those documents if you come with a federal court subpoena, and we're going to help you do that. I have other things I want to ask for. I want the disciplinary records at the school because your son was kicked out of school because of this, correct?
He was immediately.
Are you aware of any hearings, any sort of review, any analysis of evidence that was done by the junior college that expelled your son?
No, there was nothing held. He went straight to jail, and soon as word got around that this football player was in jail, it got back to the school, and campus police is what we've learned, took it back to the school, and he was immediately suspended along with his scholarship being immediately taken.
I'm going to play a short clip of your son that's on the recruiting page, and I don't know if that's going to come through completely online for those watching, but I think it will. And essentially, your son is wearing a red uniform, and he's basically just running through people. He appears to be a pretty good athlete, if not an outstanding athlete. What has this done to him in terms of his self-esteem? And is he back in school? Where is he right now in terms of this whole situation?
He had to transfer from Navarro County without the scholarship and without actually playing anymore to a small junior college here in our town of Houston. He has not been able to get back on the field. He's really not been able to focus on courses that he was forced to withdraw from. He had to retake those courses. That was a full schedule, which means that was 15 credits equaling 5 courses. Under the circumstances, 5 courses is a lot to deal with when you're in some legal circumstance. He could not finish 5 courses. He had to retake what he did not finish over again. He's not, all this time, over a year, he's still not has gotten back on the football field. And it took our entire family to try and encourage him to keep going. We know this is bad, but we're here to encourage you to keep you going. We needed help ourselves to keep going. And we've been trying to help each other get through this. It's been a long, long journey, and we're still not there yet.
Well, I've read many of the emails that you wrote us about different points in the trial and in the situation you were in, and I do want to, tell you how much respect I have for you and how proud I am of you as a mother. To stop your entire life, basically. I see how much time you put into this. I've read the letters you've written, and they bring me to tears. To see this young man's career ruined and derailed for nothing more than an incompetent police officer is unbelievable. And if you want to fight it, we're going to help you fight it. Now, I gave you some parameters in terms of what we can do. I'm not the lawyer, but I'm damn sure a good investigator. And we're going to tear through that county to get to the bottom of why this case even went forward. If the sheriff needed to find a political scapegoat for this season, he picked the wrong one. The evidence in this case makes no sense. Your son had a prescription for medication he was entitled to have. The police have not produced a report a witness, an informant statement, or anything else to justify the arrest, let alone something you said a few minutes ago that I think is really critical. You said to me, and I had the same a bit of shock every time you say this, that the officer, after making the arrest, then went over on his own and notified school officials that ultimately used that same information to kick your son out
Right. Right.
without a hearing.
Without a hearing, even though their student guidelines and the procedures and policies said that each student was due process. He was not given due process. All they found out was he was in jail, and that's what they went off of. They didn't, wait until they got any evidence. They didn't allow him to speak his side of the story. He was gone in a matter of 24 hours.
Okay.
And also, he was evicted from his apartment because of this. So myself and my husband wind up driving down there to pack all of his stuff and put it in our car and move him back home.
Okay, Miss Lee, we're going to talk again. I just wanted to let you have a snapshot of my view of the case, and I'm give you an idea of what evidence I've reviewed. You can see it on the screen right now, and you can play it back on the front of our website at a later time. But let me just go over a few key findings and give you my expert opinion, which you may use in court. If you call me to testify, this is what I will tell the judge. To a reasonable degree, a professional certainty, it's my opinion that your son, Darrell Lee, was wrongfully arrested, that there was not sufficient probable cause for the officers to make an arrest, that the officers broke rules and guidelines that are useful to police officers when conducting search and seizure, that I have sufficient training and experience to make these statements. My information can be found on policeabuse.com, and anyone who reviews this video later should know that the evidence collected and the expert report produced have been conducted under Federal Rule 26, which requires that I detail my fees, my experience, my opinions, and the evidence I use to form my opinions. So having said that, let me just summarize what my opinions are, Ms. Lee. Again, I believe your son was wrongfully arrested and that there was not probable cause sufficient for the officers to do the things that were done in this case. I also think that the officer who then took that confidential information, I mean, it's one thing if the media gets it and they actually dig something up or they go through police blotters. It's another thing for a police officer to hand deliver the information on any arrestee to a school official. And one of the things that we asked the police department to provide us with is their policies regarding that type of conduct. Is that something he was required to do? Did he just do that on his own? Does he normally go down? What if the plumber was arrested? Would he then go to the plumber's church and then let the pastor know that the plumber was arrested over the weekend? Do they publish names by policy? Is that their policy to release that kind of information publicly? Because to me, it appears vindictive. I've never gone to anyone's job, school, or other private place to tell someone about an arrest I made of a suspect. It's inappropriate. So with that said, there are other mistakes that I believe that were made. Those will be detailed on your blog in my expert report. We will also have a secondary evidence review to go over what parts of your case file that you want to be public and what parts you do not. But just know that once this federal case starts, pretty much everything is public. Okay?
Okay.
All right, and you can go directly to the website after we have this phone call. It takes about 10 minutes for the show to render and then be visible to you on the website after we finish our conversation. But I regret what happened to you, and policeabuse.com will do everything we can to assist you to investigate this and pursue your federal case.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you take care.
I will.
Bye.